She was exhausted, struggling to make ends meet as a pregnant waitress. But when she looked up and saw who she was serving, everything changed, because the man made an offer she never expected. The small diner buzzed with late-night customers, the scent of coffee and fried food lingering in the air. Emma Reynolds moved between tables, balancing a tray, her feet aching with every step. She was 7 months pregnant, exhausted, and barely holding it together. Her shift should have ended an hour ago, but with rent overdue and medical bills piling up, she had begged to stay late. She didn't have a choice. "Table 5, her co-worker mumbled, nodding toward the corner booth. Emma grabbed her notepad and walked over, pasting on her usual tired but polite smile. "Good evening. What can I get you?" Her breath caught. The man looking up at her wasn't just another customer. He was someone she never expected to see. Her pulse pounded as recognition hit. No way. It couldn't be. Sitting in the booth, dressed casually but unmistakably himself, was Alexander Hayes, the billionaire entrepreneur. And in that moment, as their eyes met, Emma had no idea that her life was about to change forever. Emma's hands trembled as she clutched her notepad. Alexander Hayes. The Alexander Hayes, billionaire, investor, a man whose face had been on magazine covers. What was he doing here, in this tiny diner? He looked at her, his piercing blue eyes narrowing slightly. Recognition flickered across his face. "Emma?" His voice was smooth, but laced with surprise. Her heart pounded. He knew her name. She swallowed hard. Yes. How do you—" A slow smirk formed on his lips. "It's been a while, hasn't it?" Emma's mind raced. A while. Then it hit her. College. They had gone to the same university years ago. She had taken finance courses, dreaming of a career in business, but life had taken a very different turn. She forced a nervous laugh. "Wow. Yeah, it really has." Alexander studied her for a moment, then his gaze dropped to her pregnant belly. His expression shifted, not with pity, but curiosity. "How far along?" he asked. Emma hesitated. 7 months. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes. "And you're still working these late shifts?" Emma stiffened. "I don't really have a choice." His jaw tightened. She didn't say it for sympathy. It was just the truth. Alexander leaned back, drumming his fingers on the table. Then, suddenly, he said something that made her breath hitch. "Quit." Emma blinked. "Excuse me?" He met her gaze, completely serious. "Quit this job. I have a better offer for you." Her heart pounded. "What are you talking about?" A slow smile formed on his lips. "Come work for me." Emma's world spun. "What?" Emma stared at Alexander, sure she had misheard him. Quit? Work for him? She let out a nervous laugh. "Is this some kind of joke?" Alexander shook his head. "I don't joke about business." She tightened her grip on the notepad. "I don't understand. Why would you offer me a job?" He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Because I remember you, Emma. You were one of the smartest people in our class. You had big dreams, and now you're waiting tables at midnight, 7 months pregnant." Her stomach twisted. She hated how that sounded. She forced a smile. "Life doesn't always go as planned." Alexander nodded, his expression unreadable. "That's why I'm giving you a new plan." Emma shook her head. "I don't need charity." He smirked. "Good, because this isn't charity. It's an opportunity." She frowned. "For what?" He reached into his jacket, pulled out a business card, and slid it across the table. "My company needs someone who understands numbers, who's good under pressure, and who doesn't back down from a challenge." His gaze flickered to her belly. "And you're already proving you can handle tough situations." Emma swallowed hard. "Alexander, I haven't worked in finance since college. I don't even know if I'd be good enough anymore." His smirk faded. replaced by something softer. I think you're more than good enough. You just forgot. Her breath caught. Had she? She stared at the card. This was insane, too good to be true. And yet, for the first time in years, she felt like she had a way out. She looked back up at him, heart racing. What's the catch? Alexander grinned. No catch, just say yes. Emma took a shaky breath. And then, she did. 1 week later. Emma adjusted her blazer, smoothing the fabric over her growing belly. It felt strange, trading in her diner uniform for professional clothes again. She stood in front of the towering glass building of Hayes Enterprises, nerves buzzing in her stomach. This was real. After that night at the diner, Alexander had wasted no time. He had set up everything, her new position, training, even a flexible schedule to accommodate her pregnancy. He hadn't just given her a job, he had given her a second chance. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. The receptionist smiled. Ms. Reynolds, Mr. Hayes is expecting you. Emma nodded, following the directions to his office. As she entered, she found Alexander standing by the window, gazing over the city. He turned, a smirk forming. Right on time. Emma let out a breath. Still can't believe this is happening. He chuckled. Get used to it. She sat down, gripping the armrests. So what exactly am I doing here? Alexander leaned against his desk. You're starting as a financial analyst. Small projects at first, but I want you to get comfortable again. Emma nodded slowly. And after that? He smirked. Let's see how far you can go. She swallowed hard. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving. She was moving forward. Emma met his gaze, gratitude shining in her eyes. Thank you, Alexander. Really. His smirk softened. Just prove me right. As she walked out of his office toward her new desk, she realized something. This wasn't just a job. This was a new beginning, and she was never looking back. 6 months later. Emma sat at her desk, flipping through financial reports with ease. What once felt overwhelming now felt like second nature. She had gone from waiting tables to handling high-stakes projects at Hayes Enterprises, and she was thriving. Her office door creaked open, and she looked up to see Alexander standing there, arms crossed, smirking. You're staying late again? He asked. Emma chuckled. Just finishing up the quarterly projections. Someone has to keep this company running. Alexander raised an eyebrow. And here I thought I was the CEO. She smirked. I let you think that. He laughed, stepping inside. Their dynamic had changed over the months, less formal, more familiar. He studied her for a moment. How's the little one? Emma placed a hand on her belly, now fully rounded. Kicking like crazy. Alexander's expression softened. You've come a long way, Emma. She exhaled, looking around her office. Yeah, I have. Silence stretched between them, comfortable and warm. Then with a small smile, he said, You know, I never forgot about you. Emma's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Alexander hesitated, then chuckled. Back in college, I had the biggest crush on you, but you were too busy being brilliant to notice. Her eyes widened. You had a crush on me? He smirked. Still do. Emma's breath hitched. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. Before she could respond, Alexander straightened. Dinner, tomorrow. Let's celebrate your promotion. She blinked. Wait, promotion? He grinned. Senior financial analyst, effective immediately. Emma's jaw dropped. Alexander. No arguments. His voice softened. You've earned it. She let out a shaky laugh. Dinner sounds great. Alexander smirked. Good, it's a date. As he walked out, Emma pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heart race. 6 months ago, she was a struggling waitress. Now, she had a career, a future, and maybe, just maybe, something more. And this was only the beginning.